Captain Tsubasa Rise of New Champions is the latest anime game from Bandai Namco, this time tackling the fantastic universe of Captain Tsubasa with a game that is as much football as it is anime. Bandai Namco sent me a code ahead of release so I could bring you guys this review, and after completing all the story content the game had to offer, created my own teams, my own characters, and played a few matches in multiplayer, I am finally ready to do so. My name's Globku and this is Captain Tsubasa Rise of New Champions. In this game you can play story mode, starting with the Tsubasa arc, which takes you through the Tsubasa 3rd National Championship. From there, the International Challenge begins in another game mode called New Hero. Here you can create your own character and choose one of 3 starting schools, play through a friendly qualifier, and ultimate make it with a Japanese youth team. You can also create your own team and take it online, be it in private matches or ranked matches. And everything you do awards you with play points that you can spend on more customization options or these card packs that have player cards and training items. These are the main game modes of Captain Tsubasa and they all work together as a unit. Everything you do in one mode can influence or unlock new features in the other modes. So if it seems like I went through these modes too fast, don't worry, we'll dive deeper into all of them, but it's important that you know that what you do in story mode can be used in multiplayer, and what you earn in multiplayer can be used in story mode. But no matter which mode you pick, you're going to be playing the football game. So let's dive into gameplay systems. As you would expect from a football game, you can do all the basic stuff like passes, long passes, shooting, tackling, it's all there. But then, you've also got RPG stats, and of course, all the anime you could possibly want. The game has a very good tutorial that teaches you the basics. You can choose to do this from the practice menu, or as the game teaches you throughout the Tsubasa story arc. But I want to take it a step further in this review and explain how these systems feel in a real match. Let's start with dribbling and tackling. When you have an opponent in front of you and you don't want to pass the ball, you have 2 options to dribble past them. You can hold the sprint button or you can hit the dribble button. The outcome depends on what the defender does. Their sprint beats your sprint but loses to dribble, and their dribble beats your dribble but loses to sprint. And at first it looks like you're gonna need to guess what the opponent is doing, but you can actually react to the animations. It's not an easy task, but it is possible. As a defender, you can also choose to keep your distance and wait for your opponent to hit the dribble button by mistake, which gives you a small window to take the ball away from them safely. But as an attacker, you can also bait the defender into rushing you, as you can start to charge a shot and then cancel the charge with a sprint or a dribble, depending on the option you think will beat the defender. If you successfully dribble an opponent twice with the same player, you get a temporary buff to your stats, which allows you to charge your shots or passes faster. This is one of the most effective strategies for scoring goals, because without that buff, shots can take a really long time to charge, and you'll need to land multiple shots on a goalkeeper to drain their stamina so you can finally burst through their defense. Charge shots from close range drain the most stamina, but this is also more of a stats game than I first thought. If you have a strong goalkeeper against a weak striker, it feels almost impossible to get a goal, so this also definitely comes into play when building a team to take online. There are no fouls in this game, every tackle is perfectly legal according to the referee, but there are offsides. This means that there are no free kicks close to the opponent's goal, but you do have corner kicks if the opponent puts the ball out of bounds. Every skillful move you do, be it dribbles or tackles, fills up the V-zone meter. Once it's full, you can activate it to buff your entire team. The buff depends on the skill that your captain has activated, but in general, you can charge shots faster without having to skill opponents, and you have better stats. You can also choose to save that meter for when the opponent takes a strong shot at goal to perform your goalkeeper's ultimate move, guaranteeing that the ball doesn't go in. And those are the basics of the game. I'd say it's a game with a decent amount of depth. I've been enjoying discovering these systems and running into different types of players online. Some were predictable, so they were easy to tackle and dribble, which just leads to a ton of goals. Others had me on my toes and forced me to adapt and change my playstyles. And I'm honestly impressed at how well they merged a traditional football game with anime. It's a balance that's not easy to strike, but this game does it beautifully. And now that you know how the game is played, let's talk about the different game modes and what else there is besides playing football. The journey is where you'll find both of your story modes. The game recommends you start with the Tsubasa arc, and so do I. Not only is the New Hero arc more difficult, it actually continues the story of the Tsubasa arc. The Tsubasa arc is about 4.5 hours long, and as I mentioned, it retells the events of the 3rd National Championship for Tsubasa and the Nankatsu team. There are no difficulty settings for the entire story mode. The game decides the difficulty that's needed, and you can definitely definitely feel it changing. Sometimes it even changes mid-match after a cutscene or half-time, which felt like a good way to create tension in matches. During this arc, you may trigger some cutscenes in the middle of your game. These cutscenes are all missable as far as I know, as they only trigger if you do something specific mid-match. For instance, if the Tachibana brothers didn't get so close to my goal and I didn't have Ichizaki on the field, I wouldn't get this cutscene. The integration of these cutscenes was awesome. It's a way to make the matches more cinematic, and at the same time, it never feels like it's forcing you to lose a match or to determine the outcome in any way. Sure, sometimes the goal is scored in these cutscenes, but it's also my fault for letting the opponents get so close to the goal. I could have avoided it. In a way, it felt like they were gonna score anyway. They just did it in a cutscene instead of regular gameplay. The game does a great job of recreating the moments of this arc, so I'm sure fans of the series will enjoy it, but the game doesn't neglect newcomers. I personally watched a couple of episodes of Tsubasa, but never followed it too closely. And now, I think I'm a fan. Because every time a new character is introduced, you unlock these movies in a side menu that give you background on a character and explain defining moments of the plot. But since it's on a side menu, it doesn't get in the way for fans who already know that stuff. It's a game that once again strikes a perfect balance of catering to fans and newcomers alike. Once you're done with the Tsubasa arc, the story continues, but it changes protagonist. This time, you get to create your own character. There are a lot of options for creating this new hero, particularly in the face and hairstyle. The game gives you a lot of freedom on the features you want to choose. The one place where I felt I was a bit limited was the body size, but other than that, you have plenty of options from the start, and you can unlock even more at the Playpoint store. After you create your own character, you can choose one of 3 different schools, and the story goes from there. This arc is a lot bigger than the Tsubasa arc, about 10 hours long, so story mode in total is around 15 hours. But the thing is, this new hero mode is worth replaying at least 3 times, as each school has a unique story that it's telling, complete with dialogue scenes and even original anime scenes. Once you qualify for the All Youth Japan team, there will be some repeated cutscenes on multiple playthroughs, but this mode also has multiple endings, and these are important since they also unlock new teams for you to play in the other game modes. You can unlock these endings using different dialogue choices. For the most part though, the dialogue choices don't have a big impact. I would say there is one dialogue choice per playthrough that has a big impact, and the game tells you that you're about to go on a different story path. It's very obvious when it's about to happen. Other than that, just pick whatever you want. This story arc is also unique since depending on how you perform in a match, you'll get different ability points that you can allocate yourself. If you do poorly, you'll get less points, and guess what? You don't get to retry the match. You'll also get side objectives to help you maximize your stats during the story. If you miss those side objectives, you don't get those points. And that's important because once the story ends, you finalize your character, and now you can take it into multiplayer and the other game modes. And this is how you create a character in Captain Tsubasa. You can't just go into a menu and make whatever you want. You have to play through this story mode and develop your character as best as you can to create the strongest possible player to take online. There are 20 character slots in total, so if you want 20 characters, you're gonna have to replay the story 20 times. It's not gonna take you 10 hours for each playthrough though, because fortunately there is an option to automatically skip cutscenes you've already watched. So if you turn that on, you don't need to worry about skipping new events. But still, it's quite a number of matches. It still takes a really long time. You can also change your character's name, appearance, and skills after you're done with the story, so if there's anything you regret, the game is very forgiving and will let you change it. The only thing you can't change are the stats. Those are set in stone. If you did poorly, try again, from scratch, from the very beginning. And now that you understand story mode and how to create a character, let's talk about how it comes together with multiplayer. Everything you do awards you with play points, which you can use to unlock more customization options or buy these card packs. The card packs include 2 things: friendship cards and training items. Both of them can only be used in story mode. Training items will help you buff your character, either make your player stronger during a match or get more ability points by the end of the story. These are consumable, so every time you use one, you're gonna need another one for the next match. Friendship cards, much like training cards, are also only usable in story mode. They're for unlocking friendships between your created character and other characters of the story. This is how your character learns different moves from the other players. But it's not enough to just get the cards, you actually have to select those cards before a match match to develop your friendship. So having all the cards in the game doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna be overpowered by the end of the story, since you have a limited amount of matches and a limited amount of cards to develop friendships with. And all these card packs can only be obtained with play points, which you get from playing the game. So far, there are absolutely no microtransactions in the game. But these items can be useful for developing a strong character, and a strong character can be useful in multiplayer. As you join ranked for the first time, the game asks you to build your own team, with your own emblem, team name, and whatever players you want, including your created characters. You can pick any player from any team you have unlocked, so I highly recommend you beat the new hero mode at least once, as you get a lot of new teams after your first playthrough, and you can take all of those players into your custom team. Your team has a points limit though. Each player has a cost associated with them. The better the player, the bigger the cost. So you must build a team under a certain point limit so everyone doesn't run the most powerful players of all time. After you've made your team, you can join in matchmaking. The first matches will be against the CPU as you climb up the ranks. After that, you'll start getting some human players. And if you do well, if you win matches, your rank will go up, and so will the cost limit of your team. So you'll be able to bring stronger players into your roster if you're able to climb in ranked. And playing online gives you play points, which then you can spend at the store to get more items and friendship cards so you can build an even better player on the new hero story. That's the basic loop of Captain Tsubasa. Oh, took us a while to get there. It's interesting how all of these modes are connected, and while it is annoying to have to play through the entire story just to create a character, it's also a fascinating method. Better than just letting you give your character whatever points you want and make an overpowered striker or midfielder. If you want a powerful player, you have to earn it. You have to be excellent on every single match during that story mode. And like I said, it's worth beating at least 3 times because of the 3 unique school stories and the multiple endings. Outside of matchmaking, you can also create a room match where you can play 1v1 or 2v2, where each team has 2 players controlling it, which can be fun since a lot of the characters have combo moves, so combining with a second player can be fun. And this is something you can also do locally in local versus. You also have the option of creating a local championship in a league or tournament format with a maximum of 8 teams. And finally, let's talk about the online experience, the netcode. I think the netcode for this game is pretty good. Having played a few matches against players who were near me, I can say the matches felt pretty flawless. But then I also tested the game against Papa Berto. You might know him, he's another YouTuber. The goal was to stress a connection between Portugal and America, and for the most part, it was fine. The most lag I noticed was these weird janky movements from players, which feels like they can be safely ignored, but they can also get in the way if you're trying to react to a dribble or a sprint animation. I also ran into a random opponent whose connection was fine for most of the match, but then there were moments where I definitely could feel my inputs were delayed, which caused me to mistime my tackles, and even player movement felt sluggish. So it's a game where I'd still recommend running an Ethernet cable if possible, since I suspect those peaks were caused by Wi-Fi. No netcode can survive bad Wi-Fi connections though, so for the most part, I'd say it's a solid netcode. I think I ran through everything I wanted to talk about. I mean, some stuff goes without saying. The game looks gorgeous. From character models to animations, it's a beautiful game. The soundtrack also does it justice. So, since I'm out of things to say, it's time to score this game. If you're new here, we use letters to score our reviews. F and E are the bad games, D and C are okay, B and A are the good games, and this is my score for Captain Tsubasa, Rise of New Champions. Not only does the game look great, it has a ton of story content that is actually fun to engage with. Discovering the hidden cutscenes, getting the multiple endings, trying to maximize your created character. It's also a game that has a decent amount of depth, as I can see myself playing ranked for a really long time. And hopefully no lame or broken strategies emerge from the community, but if they do, I hope they're quick at fixing them with a patch, because it's a ton of fun to play. I do have some minor gripes. It's not a perfect game, obviously. I wish creating a character was faster. Even if I think their method is interesting, I do want to make a full squad of created characters, and that's gonna take me ages. And I wish the game also had a spectator mode in room matches. It just doesn't. You can't spectate your friends' matches. But these gripes are not enough to deny this game the highest possible score. Well done done, Bandai Namco. You made me want a Haikyuu game. Please make it happen. Folks, if you want more Captain Tsubasa, come by my Twitch channel. I think I'll be playing this for a while in the next couple of weeks. Come hang out, maybe we'll play some matches. And if you've already played this game, let the people know what you think of it in the comments. So if someone comes to this video wondering if they should buy the game or not only do they have my opinion, they can read yours as well. And as always, thank you very much for watching. My name is Globku and I'll see you next time. Bye!